This video is going to cover page 282 through 285, the beginning of 285, on how to create and apply a radial gradient and then how to edit the radial gradient colors. So to begin with here, we are going to zoom in on this oval shape on the side of your sailboat. So I'm going to get my zoom tool out of the toolbox and I'm going to drag across that area there to do a controlled zoom so I can see that nice and clearly. Then I need to switch to my selection tool and I'm going to select that white oval shape, or ellipse as the book calls it. And with that selected now, I'm going to come up here to my control panel at the top of the screen and I'm going to choose my fill color to change the fill color from a solid white into the gradient here called white black. And by default it comes in as a linear gradient. I need to change that. First I'm going to swap or hide these swatches here by hitting my escape key. Then I'm going to go to the gradient panel. If your gradient panel is not open, go to the view menu and find your gradient panel. Here's my gradient panel, and in my gradient panel I need to make sure that I have the fill box selected. If you instead have the stroke box selected, your next step is not going to work right. So make sure you have the fill box selected here. And then with that selected up here next to type, instead of linear, I'm going to tell it I want it to be a radial gradient. And so now I have the radial gradient selected. Moving on to page 283, step 1, we're going to tell this to reverse. Right now it's starting with the white at the center going out to black at the edges. There's a button right here in the gradient panel that'll reverse that. And so now it's going from black in the center out towards white on the edges, which is what we want to begin with here. We're going to be changing the colors of this, however. So with my gradient tool now, I'm going to go over to my toolbox and find my gradient tool. And since this gradient is selected, it's giving me new information. And notice if I slide my mouse onto the object, I see that this radial gradient is truly spreading the color from black to white in a round fashion. And that's indicated by the dotted line. And you can note here that it is a truly round circle. Even though the shape that was white that I'm trying to fill in is not round, it's a more oval shape, this radial pattern is coming in as a truly round pattern. By the way, what we're trying to make here is a porthole, like a window in the side of the ship. So we're going to be applying colors to make it look like that's a window. So the other thing you noticed here is the gradient slider appears on top of my selected object. When I position my mouse on it, it gets wider for me to see, and you can also see the color stops at the end, each end of this, designating the color changing from the black at the center to the white on the outside. So with my mouse positioned over this bar, the gradient annotator it's called, or the gradient bar, I want to double click on the black color stop on the left edge so I can change this to a different color. I'm going to use CMYK colors, so I have to move from my swatches button to my color button so I can get the CMYK colors in here. And the colors they want us to use for cyan is 22. Then I'm going to tab for magenta 0, for yellow 3, and for black 0. Now notice I've typed the 0, but it still looks like a black color here. That's because it has not finished that. I have to hit my tab key to finish that. And so now I see I've changed what was black into the light blue color, and my radial gradient is going to have that blue color showing to make it look more like a window shape. I'm going to hit my escape key to hide that panel. And now we're going to move on to page 284. We're starting with step 4 at the top here. We're going to add another color here to this. Position your mouse near that slider, and when you get down here near the bottom, you're going to see a symbol just like we saw in our last part of the lesson, where there's a plus sign growing out by your arrow key. I'm going to come just to the left of the original ending one, and I'm going to click a spot in there to put in another color stop for my radial gradient. We're going to change the color of this by double clicking on it. This time we're using swatches. And in my swatch window here, I actually have some colors that are labeled as the window names. They are in this area here. There's a gray color there called window 1, which we're going to apply to this. And notice there's a location where I can tell it where I want this stop to appear on my radial gradient slider. and we want this to be at 87. I guess I was a pretty good guess on that one, but I'm going to hit tab again to make that stay. Notice when I have this set here, it's also showing over here in my gradient panel there as well. The information is the same in both places. Now I'm going to press the escape key to close that one, and I want to come back up here and hover over this area now, and this time I'm going to duplicate the color stop that I just created. So I'm going to, on a Windows computer, you're going to press the Alt key. On a Mac computer, you're going to press the Option key. I'm going to hold my finger down on that tab stop that I have there and pull it over. It's pulling another one off. I'm going to pull it over slightly. This one, I'm going to release my mouse. That one is my selected one. And I'm going to change the position on that one. Whoops, I got to double click to reopen that. I'm going to change the position on that one to 80%. So I'm going to type 80 there for that one. And that color there is staying at the color it is currently. So I'm going to hit escape. Checking my notes here just to make sure I haven't changed anything there. The first one was at 87. The second one, let me hit escape, open up the second one. The second one, whoops, I have down at 70. That one's supposed to be at 80. And I'll hit tab to seal that in. So those first two are quite close to each other. The book mentions you might want to zoom in even closer to make that job easier, but you don't need to. I find it works pretty well from right here. And now we're going to look at another way to add one here. We're going to double click the light blue color stop that we have at the far left edge and double click on that one. And we're going to reposition that one so that one's at the 70 location. So I'm going to type in the 70 and hit my tab key. Now what that's telling this to do, and it's easier to see it maybe over here in the gradient bar, it's telling the color to stay blue for a longer period of time before it gradually changes into this gray. Then it's going to stay gray for a long period of time, because a brief period of time anyway, because the second color next to it is the same gray. And then from there to this next location, it's going to change gradually to the white, and that's going to give us more of a round appearance here. So we are completed at this point. We're going to stop this video, then you can refer to the next one when we get into adjusting the positioning of this radial gradient with inside the window shape. So I'm going to save with the Command S or a Control S on my keyboard, and then I'm going to stop the video for now.